Welcome to Women's Million Dollar Conversations with Alice Tang, where we share stories from successful businesswomen who have saved, earned, or sold over $1 million and discuss how they built their success and insights to help you achieve your goals. Now, let's join the conversation.
Hello, Suzie Hall, my new friend, which is a connection from a wonderful friend, Adi Calvin. Suzie Hall is the CEO and the founder of the Cornerstone Collective. I'm so happy to have Suzie with me. So, Suzie, tell us about yourself and your company.
Yes, I am founder and CEO of 4 companies. 2 of my companies mainly design and furnish hotels. And we just celebrated 30 years in business in 2022. And then the 3rd company is the Cornerstone Collective, and that's the company that you see branded on our website. And that is a company that is just over 2 years old. I brought in a partner at that time, another fellow EO member, and created a collective, a collaborative, because I've always had a heart to help other creatives elevate their businesses. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And then my 4th company is new just within the last 6 months or so. And that's my personal brand. And it's a personal transformation and lifestyle brand. And that was an outgrowth of some speaking I did this past year, specifically a few EO talks. And I'm also writing a book.
Wow, you got yourself really busy. Later on, we'll get into time allocation and family if we have time.
Yes.
So many audience would know who is EO and what is EO. Would you just tell us a little bit so that we are tracking?
Yes. So EO stands for Entrepreneurs Organization, a global organization. I think we have around 16 to 17,000 members worldwide, and we're in over 150 countries or chapters. And I joined EO Idaho. I live in Idaho currently. I joined a little over 10 years ago. And the journey with EO has been part of my personal transformation as well as my business transformation journey. I was blessed to serve as chapter president back in 2017-18 timeframe. I was the first female president of our chapter. So I have some stories around how that all went. And to qualify for EO membership, there's 2 qualifications. 1, you need to be a founder or majority shareholder of your company. And 2, you need to own a business or be the majority shareholder of that business that has at least $1 million or more US dollars annual revenue.
Well, that really started the journey of our conversation here. We are going to talk about your revenue, your company income or revenue. So tell us about your first million, when you first passed your million. What happened? Who helped you to get there, or you did it by yourself? And then how did you feel after you landed or surpassed it?
Great question. So I consider myself somewhat of an unintentional $1 million entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is that I have been an entrepreneur my entire life, a lot of different entrepreneurial activities throughout my lifetime. When I left my corporate job in sales, I was getting ready to start a family with my husband at the time, and I really wanted a lifestyle that allowed me to have the best of both worlds. Being a mom, being available and around with my kids, but also enjoying the business that I had started, which was at that time designing and furnishing corporate office spaces. So I didn't set out to build a big business nor to achieve certain revenue thresholds because it was a lifestyle journey for me. So when I say unintentional, when I got to the $1 million revenue mark and was able to qualify for EO, it was like I looked back and said, oh, wow, that's really great. I did it. But I know a lot of other women and people that do set goals to get to certain revenue levels. And I have since done that after I achieved the $1 million. So I kind of had that under my belt. Now, I will say I do have a business degree. I have a business management degree, although I'm a professional interior designer. So I describe myself as a perfect split down the middle of left brain and right brain. And a lot of creatives in my experience are challenged with the business side. So I tell everyone I meet, take at least one business class. You'll be glad that you did. I had so many people help me along the way, especially those early clients who trusted and believed in me as I stepped away from the security of that corporate sales job into entrepreneurship. And I'm still friends with some of those early clients, even though they've since retired. And so that's just a little snippet of my journey and what I mean by unintentional $1 million.
You are very humble by saying unintentional $1 million. And what I pick up on what you shared was that you started with you want to make sure that your family is taken care of. So you make a decision, a very intentional decision to leave the corporate job and continue to nourish and build on what you know and your passion, which is interior design, you just said. So that I think it really can relate to a lot of women, because life, you only have this 24 hours, and when you have multiple things happening in your life, it's really the power of attention. What you want to attend to intentionally, you give up the corporate job and here you are.
Yes.
Building the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies. We are very impressed.
Oh, thank
the
you.
journey to your success, I know a lot of women and men would say it's a journey, right? There's no destination. I'm still in the make of. But on your journey to pass that million and continue to double it and double it, would you tell us what is the biggest bias you run into and how did you resolve that or take care of it, or you dealing with it still?
Yes. So as we know and we've talked about, there is and still will be, I think, gender bias, right? So again, as I mentioned, I was the first woman president of the EO Idaho chapter, and I declared at the first board meeting that it wasn't going to be a fraternity anymore. And I'm very direct and fairly outspoken, so I think that shook people up a little bit. But in my specific profession, the main bias that I've encountered is people, clients wanting to see me as a decorator and not as a certified interior designer. And is a place for both. So decorators are more like you see on HGTV that are flipping houses and doing all of that. And they're touching the surfaces. We get into the interior architecture and lighting design and biophilia, which is the connection to nature and bringing the outdoors in. So I consider myself an interior architect. We do AutoCAD and Revit and very technical programs so that we can both create and convey our design packages. And as I mentioned, now we're designing hotels. I'm currently working on a boutique hotel renovation project, and the purchasing portion of that project is a little over $2 million. So that's one deal. And that's an example of our deal sizes increasing over the years. So my entrepreneurial journey has been, like most of us, right? Up and down and big peaks, some valleys. It's not a straight incline. But our average deal size used to be $10,000. And so now having average deal size be about $1 million, to me, that's tremendous growth. And it's evidence that the work that I've put in my team around me, which I pour into them, we have the confidence and the skill set to be able to do deals at this size. And we are pitching a $25 million hotel renovation. I'll be in LA next week for that one. And so now I always advise designers, creatives, decide if you're going to be a decorator or a professional designer. Again, there's room for both. And then go down that path and become the best that you can be in that space. So I have always been one to read and educate myself and get all the certifications and the project experience along the way. I've even tutored architects on LEED, which is an environmentally friendly and efficient design process. So I think that passion for the thirst for learning, which is one of EO's core values, and the confidence that comes through because I do know my craft, now are attracting our ideal clients to us, which is who we want to be working with.
Beautiful. I just heard that from 10,000 average deal size to $1 million and beyond that. Okay, 10,000 is 1% of $1 million.
Wow.
Can you tell us what mindset have you changed to get there?
Yes.
I'm sure people who's looking at you, who can relate to you, is looking for that insight, tip, skill, or even a change.
Great question. So the intentional decision that I made as my kids were getting older and I was now a single mom, looking forward, how did I want to be spending my time and being an entrepreneur, working and creating and building my lifestyle? And having worked in the commercial office, medical, government, luxury, residential, and multifamily sectors, I really took the time, this is important, to reflect back on our journey. I really took the time to reflect back on the projects and the clients and the revenue over the years. And this was after I'd been in business about 25 years. And I said, I want to be in the hotel industry. We had not designed a hotel yet. So I started attending hotel design conferences and hotel investment conferences and setting up meetings with architects and owners and general contractors who were in the hotel and hospitality space. And lo and behold, we landed our first hotel design contract. And that contract size, because of the market I chose, by default, their budgets are bigger because the buildings are bigger. There are lots and lots of guest rooms in a hotel. So if you think about and maybe compare a hotel guest room to a master suite in a home, almost as much care and time and attention goes into designing each. But the hotel rooms, it's multiplied by 100, 200, 300 fold. So I strategically chose hotels because I saw the volume opportunity. So instead of trying to add more and more residential projects or commercial projects, the design budget might be between $10,000 and $25,000, and the procurement budget might be between $50,000 and $100,000. I chose hotels where, again, it's at least 5x of those numbers. So it was a very intentional decision that, again, parallel and combined with the lifestyle, how I wanted to live, and I'm loving it.
Oh, great. As you talk about it, I have goosebumps. First time when I hear 10,000 to a million, the second time is multiply. So I also have mentor in my life, and I can tell you that I was beating my head against the wall because my case size in my financial world is very small. So I have to paddle a lot.
Yes.
So one time I asked for 15 minutes from a not even mentor, somebody who's really successful. You can't ask for too much time. I just want that secret sauce. They tell me two things. And one of the two things is add a 0 at the end of your case size. Think about that.
Yes. Yes.
And that
Exactly.
has put me and you at a different place. And thank you for sharing that. Now, on your way of building all your success and collaborating with wonderful people, I'm sure that you have very big decision you need to make when the stakes are very high. What you do? How do you make those decisions?
Yes. So for me, it's a process. And you know that I'm a big believer in how our personal state, our individual state, and our mindset and our way of being affects our business life. And I ground myself every morning in what I call my morning groove that gets my mind and my body clear so that the important thoughts and items that need my attention, they really just float up is the best way I can describe it. And it's become a very organic process. I used to write lots of to-do lists and prioritize them and put them in different categories. And that was good for a little while I was building my business. Now that I'm at this level and the deal sizes are so much bigger, it's really a lot of relationship building, understanding and attracting what will be important to that project, and taking the time to both reflect and intend or visualize. So for me, it's a combination of all of that. If I just jump in and go, which used to be my way of being and doing, I would still be on that hamster wheel. It wouldn't be very strategic. Now, when I push the pause button, and if I have a big pitch or a big presentation like I did with this $2 million deal that we landed, and I had to wait 3 months before getting the approval, and patience isn't one of my biggest virtues, I needed to sit in that space of, okay, I've done everything I can control, I've done. And then I'm a Christian, I pray and I leave it up to God. And then I look at the next best thing. So I don't get all wrapped up around one deal. I've learned to, and I've always been this way in my business, have more than one market or one area that you're serving, diversify in your business. One of the reasons I have 4 businesses now as well. So for me, it's really that combination of centering, clearing, and allowing the best thoughts come into my mind, visualizing and controlling what I can control, and doing my very best, and then surrendering to whatever happens. There's going to be failures along the way. I'm a big believer that we fail forward. Seth Godin, the author, says, if I fail more times than you, I win. So I think about that quote a lot, and I consider a lot of things practice. So I spoke at an event locally last week that I probably wouldn't normally have said yes to, but I looked at it as practice, and it ended up being a really powerful, meaningful experience for both me and some of the attendees.
Well, I say that your way of running your life every day actually is the determination of how successful you are today, Suzie. So applause. Because without reflecting and grounding ourselves at the beginning, we start looking at the phone. How many of us start the day? This is the alarm clock. Alarmed. I just check, right? Who needs me? So they hijacked our time and our energy.
Yes.
We didn't even have a time, using your word here, borrowing it, to pause and being unhurried and think about what we need to think about. Think about what we need to think about.
It's so
And
well
then-
said. Everything starts with our thoughts. And a lot of people ask me, how do you do it all? How do you blah, 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 blah? And I say, it's just integrated. What I don't consider it as, like you mentioned at the beginning, we all have the same amount of time in a day. And look at everything, who people are, what people have achieved. For each of us, it's a different journey. And once I learned what my genius zone was, and that I didn't need to control everything, and I couldn't control everything, that was really freeing.
Yeah, my dad is a very successful entrepreneur, not even graduated from junior high school. He said, you must face reality. Once you face reality, knowing things that you can control, basically what he's trying to tell me, you become very creative. Because if you're still in the dream or the denial of this is not happening, it's not me, it's somebody else, you can't really problem solve. So thank you for saying that. We love it. So I'm sure in the last 30 years, there are times that is super tough, whether it's financially or business or client, you have a very tough time and you might thought about, God, I can't do this. So when you want to quit, what kept you going?
So one of my favorite quotes is by Martin Luther King Jr. And he says that you don't need to see the whole staircase, just take the first step in faith. And faith is believing and trusting in the unseen. So that's my entrepreneurial journey. There have been many days that ended up not the way I intended or anticipated that they would go, some better, some much worse. And through it all, my Christian faith has definitely been a grounding space for me, and realizing that there's more of an eternal perspective than just in the day to day. And also that at the end of the day, people are more important than the deal or the money. And my dad taught me that. My dad was a major college football coach. So growing up that way, I can see now how really unique that was. And it instilled in me a lot of confidence, also being able to take big risks. So when you're playing in the Orange Bowl or the Rose Bowl for the national championship in college football, there's a lot riding on those games. And I've been on the sidelines of the Orange Bowl, and I was exposed to a lot of that when I was younger. And my dad always demonstrated the fact that people were more important than the wins or the losses. So that's also stayed with me.
Very, very wonderfully said. Now we're winding down with the questions here. What is the one thing that you would do differently if you were to start again?
Yes, and there's actually a couple. One, I would hire what we call it who, not how. So I would hire who's, people, to do things that aren't in my genius zone, in my wheelhouse. It's not a great use of time for me to do my books, for instance. Now, I did it early on. A lot of entrepreneurs do because you're in your business and you're building it. I wish I would have brought in who's for accounting and marketing and that sort of thing earlier on website development than I did, because I thought I needed to do it all. So that's a biggie. I would have more who's, and even if I didn't have a big budget, parse a little bit out and build that over time. And then the second thing is really focusing on ideal clients and vetting them versus saying yes to every deal opportunity that appeared.
Amen on that. Amen.
Right. And again, early on when you're building your business, you feel like you need to accept all business no matter what. And again, I've learned over time that it might not be as good as it seems. And it also might not be worth the struggle or the challenge with certain clients. So in the residential area now, I only say yes to luxury residential projects if I either know the client, I've worked with them before, or they come highly recommended by somebody I know.
Very, very beautifully said. Oh my goodness, I have goosebumps all the way through. What is the best advice or the worst advice you have ever received in your life?
Yes, and I'm like you, I'm a constant learner. I'm constantly taking input. But one of the recent things that I, looking back, again, reflecting back, that it's so prevalent to my journey is that 80% of our time, and this comes from Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's a thought leader I follow, 80% of our time should be spent on improving our thinking and strategizing and visualizing, and only 20% on the mechanics. And I used to spend so much time on the checklist and doing all the things and micromanaging and getting in the weeds. And again, as my thinking has evolved and expanded, that has allowed these bigger deals and relationships to naturally appear. And everything begins with our mind. So that's the biggest piece of advice I wish I would have received and been open to, instead of feeling like I needed to just do all of those years.
Of course, doing it, I think, has instant gratification because we check the box, right? We have a list of 10 things or 10,000 things. I don't know about your list of one, but checking a box is very satisfying. The question, I think, where you want to pose is checking this box, using that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or an hour to finish that. Does it help you to move forward or kept you where you are at? I think that's where you were telling us or implying the $10,000 deal and the $1 million deal. Of course, there is different care, different things we need to put in, but it's not 100 times more effort.
Exactly. It's beautifully said. And a quick example that comes to mind is my email inbox. So I get about 500 emails a day. Probably 20% are junk, but I still need to go through them to see if something is valid or needs my attention. I've used VAs in the past and assistants to help me navigate it. But now I am in a more evolved place where I can quickly scan my junk emails, delete them, quickly scan my email inbox just a couple times a day. I'm not tied to my emails, and I tell people that. If you need me, text me. And then I don't feel a need to respond to and file every single email. I set up rules, or I just let them sit there. And I didn't used to be able to do that. And now my mind knows that, hey, the information's there if I need it, but I don't need to fill my mind with that right now.
Very, very good. I love it. We could talk about productivity every day. Since this is a $1 million conversation for women here, I have to ask this question. What's your value of money?
So my value of money is that it gives me freedom of time. It affords me lifestyle. It also creates abundance for everybody involved in my world. And that is one of our core values at Cornerstone, is abundance, and a deep core value of mine. I love creating abundance for everybody, not just myself. and the growth mindset around money, you can always make more money. There's plenty to go around. There's a lot to go around. And my ideal clients have that same mindset, where at the end of the day, it's about the people and the experiences, and the money will follow.
Beautiful. What are you grateful for before we close?
Oh, grateful for so many things. Every morning I write down in my Oak journal, OAK, 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then at the end of the day, I reflect back. So sometimes in the morning, it's a certain person, or my family is usually right at the top, my relationship with God, my businesses, my health, so many things. It's hard to even list them all. It's a constant state of gratitude is really important to me.
Thank you so very much, Suzie. You have given us a lot to learn from, the tips of success. I don't say this lightly. However, I just feel that leaders like yourself, you're not only helping your own companies, but your ripple effect is to your community, like EO, like people in Idaho, people who have done business with you, Suzie. You've impacted their life because you're holding who you are, and you have a way to run your life and to honor your belief, which we are both believers. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you, Alice. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.